everybody to the Summer 2025 Bring Your Own Lunch program here at Lawrence Heritage State Park. My name is Rich Padover. I'm the summer interpretive tour guide here. And again, welcome to today's presentation on the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. So the basis for our discussion today will be a multiple choice quiz, which you all have, which you're welcome to start taking, or you can follow it, take it as we go along, going over the correct answers. But again, if you'd like to get started with it, that's fine. Also, my narrated boat tours of the Merrimack River begin Saturday, July 12th. That day is fully booked right now. So the next available opportunity would be July 19th, okay? So if you're interested in my boat tours, you do need to sign up in advance, so let me know, or Rebecca at the front desk. And we are limiting it to no more than 5 people per booking, okay? In the past, we've had like a group of 10 who books the boat tour, but then they don't show up. All right, so we're trying to avoid that now. So please, no more than 5 people in your group, okay? But again, it does need to be booked ahead of time, okay? And then I do have the July schedule now for the Bring Your Own Lunch program, all right? So when you're leaving today, they're on the orange flyers out there on the trunks and the lobby.
Are you doing it?
I'm doing one of them.
Okay.
Yes, and then there'll be other speakers doing the other 3 for July. I'm doing the 16th. You'll see it on the flyer after, but there's something called a Tree City, a Gateway City, an All-America City. So I'll be discussing those various kinds of cities on July 16th, okay? And then the other 3 Wednesdays, the 9th, the 23rd, and the 30th. So if you want a heads up, Jim Beauchene, the former supervisor here, he'll be speaking July 9th on the Great Stone Dam and the canals here and their status. July 23rd, Dr. Jörg Siegenthaler, a retired professor, he's a member of the Friends group here. He'll be speaking about a person who came here, an immigrant from Saxony, and got settled into the German-American community here in Lawrence. And then on July 30th, a historian and another friend of the park, Tom Spitaleri, he'll be speaking about collecting historical memorabilia, which if you know him, you know that's his thing, among other stuff, okay? So anyway, that's what's coming up, but everything's on the orange flyer that you'll see out there after, okay? So, all right, so why don't we launch into today's presentation. The synopsis there, the American Revolutionary War, which goes by different names, AKA the Revolutionary War or the American War of Independence, was the armed conflict that comprised the final 8 years of the broader American Revolution, okay? So began on April 19th, 1775, as I'm sure you know, not too far from here, Lexington and Concord, right? And then ended on September 3rd, 1783, with the Treaty of Paris. So during the American Revolution, the American Patriot Forces, they were known as the Patriots, organized as the Continental Army and commanded by none other than George Washington, defeated the British Army. The conflict was fought in North America, the Caribbean, and the Atlantic Ocean. Although the war's outcome largely remained uncertain, okay, it could have gone either way there during the duration, General Washington's leadership skills, coupled with some decisive and pivotal victories, led King George of Great Britain to negotiate. It brought him to the table and brought an end to the war, which acknowledged the independence of the 13 colonies, later to become the 13 original states, and established the U.S. as an independent and sovereign nation. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's the American Revolution. Okay, but of course, at college, you can take a whole semester-long course on the American Revolution, right? As well as things like World War I, World War II, So, all right, now, test your knowledge. Okay, so, now, number one, which one of the following is true about George Washington, right? Because, when we deal with figures in American history, there's information out there that's, not true about some important figures in history, right? Some of it is wishful thinking on the part of some people, right? We probably all know people who sometimes try to perhaps rewrite history, right? Which us historians, we shriek, right, when we see people trying to rewrite history, okay. So, but which one of the following do you think is true about George Washington? Anybody want to tell us their answer?
All of the
Yeah, D, all of the above. Okay, so all three of those things that I put down there, A, B, and C, are true about George Washington. Okay, so the thing about the slaves, right? Okay, he inherited, when he was 11 years old, actually, okay, his father died, and he inherited his father's slaves at Mount Vernon, okay? And during George Washington's lifetime, he actually had control over 500 enslaved people, okay, during his lifetime now, from 11 years old until he died at age 67, okay? So over his lifetime, he actually had control of over 500 enslaved people, okay? But as I put in choice A there, he did favor gradual emancipation, right, the release of the slaves, okay? Now, I'll tell you, in his will, okay, when he wrote up his will, he did arrange to have his slaves freed upon the death of his wife, Martha Washington, okay? So basically, in his will, he put that when my wife Martha dies, okay, our slaves, Mount Vernon, will be freed, okay? Now, Martha Washington died in 1802, okay? Now, she decided a year before she died, in 1801, I don't know if she felt bad for the slaves or she knew her time was coming, okay? So in 1801, she went against her husband's wishes, okay, and freed the slaves. There were 123 of them at this point, in Mount Vernon, their estate on the Potomac, okay? So we don't know the reason, but while she was still alive, a year before she died, she ended up going against her husband's wishes and freeing the slaves before her passing, okay? So again, 123 slaves were freed at Mount Vernon in 1801, okay? So, and a choice B there, probably a lot of people don't realize this, right? But Washington actually lost more battles than he won, okay? Even though he ended up being victorious, okay? So I'll tell you this, out of 13 major battles that Washington was involved in as commander of the Continental Army, he lost 9 of them. Not a good track record, right? Okay. He lost 9 out of 13 battles, major battles, okay? But those other 4, right, were won decisively. You'll be happy to know that the 4 that he did win were won decisively, okay? And basically, if you're interested, what are those 4? All right, so we have the siege of Boston, okay? Then the battles of Trenton, Princeton, and Yorktown. Okay, those were the 4 that were won decisively. Okay, now as far as the siege of Boston, you may know that that would be when the Patriot Army occupied and fortified Dorchester Heights. Okay, which basically forced the British out of Boston. Okay, now that occurred on St. Patrick's Day, right? March 17th, 1776, okay? So besides it being St. Patrick's Day, right, at least in our neck of the woods here, it's also called, go ahead. Evacuation Day, right, okay, because that is the day that the British basically evacuated Boston, right, when they saw how strongly, right, the Patriots had fortified Dorchester Heights, a pivotal strategic location there, right? So the British, when they saw what the Patriots had done, they're like, I don't think we're gonna come out on the winning end of things here. We better leave Boston, okay? Hence the name Evacuation Day, okay? So, you know. And then choice C, let me tell you a little bit about that. So in 1791, Congress imposed an excise tax. You know, we all hate excise taxes, right? We have them on our automobiles here, for example, right? Okay. So in 1791, Congress imposed an excise tax on distilled spirits, right? In other words, liquor, okay, to help pay the debt that had been incurred during the Revolutionary War, right? War is not free or cheap or inexpensive, right? It's a sad thing, but if you want to be the winner, right, the victor, right, you got to invest money in troops and ammunition and everything else, right? Supplies, okay? So, so by the time we get to 1791 now, we're in a deep debt here in our new country, okay? Because we obviously incurred costs during the Revolutionary War, okay? So Congress came up with the idea of an excise tax to help pay off some of this debt on whiskey, basically, distilled spirits, okay? So now, the farmers that were on the frontier, now, when I say the frontier, you got to remember this is 1791, right? So the frontier, for example, was Western Pennsylvania, okay, not the West that we know it as today, right? Okay, so the Western Pennsylvania was considered the frontier back then because, right, we were still pushing westward at that time in the very early stages of pushing westward. Okay, so you're a farmer, right, in Western Pennsylvania, 1791. Okay, and you're resenting this tax now, right? That was thrown at you by the Eastern elite, right? Okay, all right. So because you're this farmer again, way out in the country there, and the Congress now is imposing this tax, right? You're likely to view Congress as part of this Eastern elite, okay? Very resentful of them. All right. So that excise tax basically taxed the grain now of those farmers in Western Pennsylvania, right? Because grain gets distilled into liquor, right? Okay, so you're hitting those farmers where it hurts in the wallet, right? Okay, so violent protests now erupted, okay? And President Washington, right, taking seriously, you know how the president has 7 different roles, right, that they assume. One of them is commander-in-chief, right? Now, he took it very seriously, okay? So President Washington now organized a militia of almost 13,000 men, okay? And he led them now, okay, towards Western Pennsylvania. Here we come, you rebels, okay? All right, we're going to put down your rebellion now, right? Because this was called the Whiskey Rebellion, okay? So now, what happened? Did Washington actually go into battle with those troops? What do you think? No, he didn't. No. All right. He was leading the charge, right? They were heading to Western Pennsylvania, okay? But the mere calling of the militia, okay, had the desired effect now of essentially ending the rebellion, okay? When those, hick farmers got wind of the fact that 13,000 men now, okay, they're like, okay, now, right, okay, they could see what was coming, literally and figuratively, right, okay, so the rebels fled and dispersed, okay, so here's the thing, so Washington is the only president, okay, to actually lead troops, okay, to lead a battalion of troops, okay, but not into actual battle, okay? He led them, but then those rebels fled, so there was no need to actually start like firing, okay? So, all right. So the nascent US now in 1791 survived the first true challenge to federal authority, okay? This was the first true challenge of our young nation to federal authority now, okay? And then just so you know how the story ends, in 1802, when Thomas Jefferson was in office, he repealed the whiskey tax, okay? So, all right? So that's the story of that there, okay? All right, number 2. Which one of the following was the decisive and final battle that brought the American Revolution to a close? Anybody?
B.
What's that? Pat?
B.
B, Yorktown, right, Yorktown. Okay, yep. Okay, the Battle of Yorktown is what basically forced the British to surrender. Okay, so the Battle of Yorktown was in Virginia. It lasted a little under a month, September 28th to October 19th of 1781. Okay, and so basically what happened was not yet President Washington, but General Washington, okay, surrounded and trapped the British Army. He basically ambushed them at Yorktown, okay, by surrounding them and trapping them. Okay, he got them where he had them, where they couldn't escape. Okay, so that forced the British general. By the way, anybody know his name? Cornwallis, right? Okay, so General Charles Cornwallis. Okay, so that forced him to surrender, and it paved the way now for peace negotiations, okay? But that Yorktown was the pivotal and final battle, okay? Now, there were other pivotal battles, for example, the Battle of Saratoga, right? Some of you know if you remember your American history, right? That was pivotal as well, okay? But Yorktown was like the final pivotal battle which forced the British surrender now.
Well, because the French fleet was outside of Norfolk, blockading any
Yes.
supplies coming to the British.
Yes.
Didn't the French send it?
Yes, we'll be, Pat, we'll be getting into that shortly.
Okay.
I won't reveal anything ahead of time, but you're right though. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so, yeah, good.
Where was Ticonderoga?
New York.
That's on the river, right?
Yes, it's a tourist attraction
We
nowadays.
crossed on a ferry with our car
Oh, yeah, really?
from there to Vermont.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. Yep.
Well, Ticonderoga is where they got the cannons.
The cannons from Dorchester Heights, right, okay, good, yep. Okay. Number 3, who was the French military officer and politician that was instrumental in securing an American victory over the British? Anybody?
See?
C, right, the Marquis de Lafayette, okay? And if any of you follow local news, right, you know that they had the reenactment here in our area this past Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Ben Goldman. Oh, Denise, you went?
Salem.
Yeah, in Salem, yep. Ben Goldman, who's an actor, right, played the part of the Marquis de Lafayette, and they had him riding in a carriage, started out the day in Andover, right, at the Center for History and Culture, then made his way to Bicentennial Park in Methuen, then I believe Derry, some location in Derry, and then down to Salem, New Hampshire, the Field of Dreams there, right? Yep. And apparently they got a good turnout in all 4 locations, which was good to see, So now let me tell you a little bit about the Marquis, okay? You may or may not know some of this. Now, all right, his actual name, okay, he had a very lengthy name, which, I don't know, I guess shows how much money you have. right? If you,
Like some of
right?
the dogs that are registered.
Yeah, like some dogs have these like elaborate names, right? People name their pets like
Yeah.
with some of these elaborate names, okay? So get this, his actual name, like his baptismal name,
Here we
okay,
go.
was Marie.
Everybody gets
Right, everybody, like during that era, this was common, right? If you had money, right? If you were nobility, right? So Marie, Joseph, Paul, Eves, Roche, Gilbert, du Motier.
Oh.
How's that? Imagine his poor teachers in school, right? When they have to call them, you know?
Yeah, but have an
That's-
extra piece of paper.
Yeah, yeah, you know, it's
When did
like,
Lafayette come in? I got up to 8 and I didn't hear
okay. That's like a name that is,
title.
like a title, it's more like a title
Yeah.
that he assumed, okay? To go like with his rank in life, his station in life, okay? So, all right, but, oh, I'm telling you, there's poor teachers there, you know? But, so, okay, now, getting to what Pat was saying, okay? So, now he was our friend, right, okay? A friend of the US. So what he did is, he lobbied King Louis XVI at the time, the ruler of France, okay? For troops, for money, right? For arms, and for supplies. He wanted the whole kit and caboodle for us, right? Okay? Because, you know, basically, right, the thinking, right, back then, like on the part of the Marquis, was our enemy, Britain, is the Americans' enemy, right? Okay? So you know how Britain and France, for a long time there in history, had a contentious relationship, right? Okay? So basically, our enemy, meaning, you know, our enemy is the British, is the Americans' enemy, right? Okay? So it didn't take much arm twisting, right, to get him to help us, right? Because we had basically a common enemy, the British, right? So he was more than happy to lobby the king, right, to give us some help so that we could put away the British, which was no problem for the French, right? They were not shed any tears, not be shedding any tears over that.
Were the British trying to take over France?
Um,
Like everything else?
No, not take over France itself, but throughout history, they were both fighting for like territory, okay? Not like
Outside their own country?
outside their own countries, right, okay, right, so, okay. So our friend the Marquis, he commanded the Continental Army, okay, like in particular at Yorktown, okay, at that pivotal last battle at Yorktown, Virginia, the Marquis was commanding the Continental Army there, okay? And Washington took him under his wing. He considered him in some ways like a son, okay? And after the war, the Marquis returned to France. His job was done here, okay? And he became a key figure in the French Revolution now, right, in 1789. So his revolutionary days were not over with the end of the American Revolution, okay? He's like, well, now that I'm back in my own country, let's get involved in the French Revolution as well, okay?
Stir the pot.
All right, stir the pot, right? Yeah, okay. So he was celebrated as a hero now in both France and the United States, okay? So now, when Ben Goldman, the actor, came here in this area this past weekend to do the reenactment, right? Why were we doing this reenactment now in 2025? Okay, well, as you may know, during 1824-25, the Marquis went on a celebrated tour of the United States, okay, including here in the Merrimack Valley, okay? Now, what brought him here? Okay, in 1824, the incumbent president at the time, James Monroe, okay, thought it would be a good idea to invite the Marquis back to the United States, okay, in order to celebrate our nation's 50th anniversary, okay? Because 1825, 1775, right, to 1825 would have been our 50th anniversary, Okay, so President Monroe was like, oh, let me invite the Marquis here, okay, and it'll be appropriate, right, okay, to have him here for our 50th anniversary now, okay? So and of course he said yes, and people loved him so much that it got extended, the duration got extended, so it was 1824 into 1825, okay? And locally, in Andover, some of you know perhaps at Central and Chestnut Streets, there's something there called the Tea House or the Rose Cottage, okay? It's had numerous owners over the year. It's privately owned, okay? But when the Marquis de Lafayette was here in the Merrimack Valley at the time, the original, not the actor Ben Goldman, the Marquis, right? He spoke from the front steps of that tea house or Rose Cottage at Central and Chestnut Streets in Andover. Okay, so
That's not here still.
it's still there. It's a white cape cottage. Okay, it's been privately owned by various owners over the years, but yeah, it's still there. On the other side of Chestnut Street from St. Augustine's School, across the street is Christ Episcopal Church.
Yeah. Oh, you go down that side?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, if you're on Central Street there, Christ Episcopal is right across the
Right.
street, okay? And then you get to South Church there as well. Then the Franklin Pierce House there on Central Street as well. Okay, right. So, all right. Okay, so by the way, any questions or comments so far? Okay, just chime in. Number 4. What was the name of the hired soldiers who fought for the British in the American Revolution? Anybody? Yep,
Hessians.
Hessians, right. You're
Yeah.
both correct, the Hessians, right. The hired help, if you will, okay? Now, let me tell you a little something about those Hessians, okay? Now, first of all, they're mostly from the Hesse, H-E-S-S-E dash Kassel, K-A-S-S-E-L, region of Germany, okay? So that's how they get their name, Hessians. They're from the Hesse-Kassel region, okay? So somewhere between 33,000 and 34,000 were hired by the British, okay? And after the war was over, about 6,000 stayed in the newly formed United States. Okay, so the majority went back to Germany after the war, but about 6,000 stayed in our country and, began the German immigrant history here in the United
Oh, that's
States.
interesting.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
Okay, so
yeah,
coming
all right. Now, as you may know, a chunk of them did come to Lawrence, right? Beginning in the 1850s, for the most part, we had the German immigrants coming here to Lawrence, okay? They're the ones that began the Assumption Church at Park Street and Lawrence Street that is no longer there now. It's a parking lot, I think, okay? But they began the Assumption, the German Catholics who came here began the Assumption Church. It was run by the OSAs for a long time, okay? And then, Andrea, yeah.
And would that have any connection to the German folk song on Prospect Hill, Howard Street, and Vine Street, Methodist on East Haven?
Yes, correct, right. There is a connection there because a chunk of them, mostly the Protestant Germans, settled on Prospect Hill, okay? And they had that church there that you were mentioning, and I believe they began the old folks home there near the Rollins School on Howard Street, right? Which I believe is still there. It is, yeah, okay, yep. So, and then of course, at the foot of Prospect Hill, right, they had that United Presbyterian Church there. Some of them went to that, right? And across the street, there was a German funeral home, right? If you know your Lawrence history, Julius B. Emmert, right, was the German funeral director in Lawrence, at least for the Protestant Germans anyway. Okay, Julius Emmert, yeah, okay, yep, so, okay. And one other thing about those Hessians, just to clarify something or clear it up. Now, sometimes, as you may know, they're referred to as mercenaries, okay? But just so we all know, they were actually, to be technically correct, okay, those Hessians should be referred to as auxiliaries, not mercenaries, okay? Auxiliaries, okay, are soldiers that are hired out to a foreign party by their own government, okay, as opposed to serving a foreign government, okay? So that's the difference between auxiliaries and mercenaries, okay? So because they were hired out to a foreign party, Britain, by their own government, Germany, okay, they're auxiliaries, okay? If they serve a foreign government on their own, okay, then they're called a mercenary, okay? So you see that that's the difference between a mercenary and an auxiliary. They were auxiliaries, okay? So, all right, number 5. Who negotiated the Treaty of Paris in 1783 that ended the American Revolutionary War? Anybody? All of the above, you got it. Yeah, all of the above, right? Those of you who are familiar with my quizzes here, usually if I have all of the above, that's the correct answer. Right? Right? But you have to know me though, right, in order to know that, right? Okay.
We know the answer to 7 now.
Yeah, there we go. See, here we go. Let's just jump, right? Let's just jump right to 7 now, right? Okay. So, yes. So, now all 3 of them, Franklin, Adams, and Jay, of course, were experienced diplomats. Okay, so the treaty was in capable hands. Okay, as far as who was representing us, the United States now, right, or what was to be the United States. Okay, so very capable men there. Okay, Franklin, as you know, very illustrious career. Inventor of many things, right? Postmaster General, okay, diplomat. John Adams played a big role in the American Revolution, became our first vice president and then our second president, okay? John Jay had an illustrious career in law, right? Supreme Court Justice, okay? So, that Treaty of Paris. Now, as you may know, there is more than one Treaty of Paris, right? Okay, if you know your history, right? Okay, and that's because Paris was a very popular place for treaty negotiations. Okay, a lot of people considered it to be neutral territory. They welcomed delegations there to have show things. Okay, so in American history, we do have more than one Treaty of Paris. So that's why, like as historians, for example, we always clarify it by putting a year, attaching a year to it, right? So the Treaty of Paris of 1783, right, is the one that ended the American Revolution, for example. Okay, so we usually try to attach a year to it in order to denote which war it ended. Okay, so basically, and again, we were in capable hands there with those 3 gentlemen. Okay, so from our end of things, okay, yeah,
I know Ben Franklin and John Adams were not exactly best friends.
right.
Where did John Jay fall in there?
Okay, well, because his field was law, he was kind of like the one that provided balance there and tried to, negotiate and compromise. You got it, right? Okay, so, okay. So we pretty much got the objectives that we were seeking, okay? 3 major ones. Number 1, we were now recognized as a free, sovereign, independent nation. 2, it established the boundaries now of the new nation, okay? So for example, west to the Mississippi River, north to the Great Lakes, and south to Florida. Okay? 3, American fishermen now were granted rights to fish off the coasts of Newfoundland and other Canadian waters, all right? And we meaning Americans, were given navigation rights now on the Mississippi River, okay? We did not enjoy any of these things before the treaty, okay? So a lot of Americans at the time were pleased, with the outcome from our standpoint of the Treaty of Paris. Okay, so, all right, questions or comments? Okay, number 6, the name, yes, Benedict Arnold, right, is closely associated with the American Revolution. But which one of the following is not true about him? All right, anybody want to give us their answer?
The obvious seems like C.
C, right,
It is?
it is,
I don't know.
yeah, C.
I didn't know if it was a trick, and maybe A was the right.
Oh, yeah. No, it's, C is the correct answer, okay? So, yeah, considering,
Oh,
right, oh, he's a traitor, right?
Yeah.
Well, considering that, okay, he was a celebrated general in the Continental Army who was quite known for his bravery and his tactical brilliance in the military, okay? Washington, in 1780, Washington gave him command of West Point, the famed military academy, okay? But he shifted allegiances, okay, and hatched this plan to surrender West Point to the British for 20,000 pounds, a lot of money back then, okay? So he decided to side with the British, came up with this scheme, this plan to give them West Point, which is very strategically located. If you're in control of West Point, you're in a good position there to win the war, right? Okay, for 20,000 pounds. The other thing that's true about him is that he was charged with treason. Okay, once this plot was discovered, okay, needless to say, he was charged, okay, with treason, but he fled to England before he could be captured and tried, okay? So I'll tell you, so besides this plan to surrender West Point to the British, okay, while he was commanding troops now, right, and he had the confidence of General Washington, do you know that he was secretly communicating secrets with the British during the war now? Okay, so it's like, oh, okay, thank you, General Washington, for, giving me command, okay, of West Point and of the Continental Army. But I'm still going to go over to the British now. I'm going to try to help them win. Okay, it's like, oh, thanks a lot, right? Like if Washington knew, and when he did find out eventually, oh yeah, thanks a lot. I thought, I took you under my wing. I gave you these extra responsibilities. Thanks for, committing treason now, but that's what happened, okay? So his name now, as you probably know, has become synonymous with treason and betrayal in the United States, right? So if we think somebody is betraying us, right, we call them a Benedict Arnold. Oh, you're nothing but a Benedict Arnold, right? Well, that's how it got started when he was communicating secrets to the British when he was fighting supposedly for us, okay? And then when he hatched this, concocted this plan to sell West Point to the British, and then it was uncovered. So, all right. But, all right, number 7. So by the way, choice C there, so he did not start off as a blacksmith, okay? What he did was he actually started out as a bookseller, okay? He ran a shop and he sold books, okay? And then became a military man, okay? Now, by the way, and one other thing before we move on, so you might be asking yourself, okay, well, why did he switch allegiances, right? Why did he go over to the British side of things? Well, historians, okay, have debated this for years, okay, and we can't find like one particular thing that made him switch allegiances, okay, but the thing that's most likely, historians, we have kind of an agreement as to what the most likely trigger was, okay, but it was probably a combination of possibilities, okay, but the most likely one, if we had to like put our finger on it, he married a British woman. All right, there you go, right there, okay,
That's what you just said.
right, okay, blame it on the wife, right, okay, blame it on the old wife, right, okay.
Why did he marry her?
You know, it's like, oh, you know, but you know, they fell in love, what can you do, right? So he married a British woman, Peggy Shippen, Shippen, okay? And we do know for a fact that she, from what was written about her, that she did exert powerful influence on her husband. So in all likelihood, she was like the big factor, again, maybe not the only one, okay? But let's say the biggest factor. So she probably worked on her husband, wore him down, and okay, come on, you're coming over to my side of things, okay? So, all right, but okay, now number 7. So which one of the following is true about the American Revolution? All of the
I'm gonna
above.
read them.
Right, that's your safe bet there. All of the above, okay? All of the above. All right, because I thought you might be interested, all of you, in knowing some of these things. Maybe, you know, what you weren't taught in school, as they say, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you know, maybe your history teachers didn't get into like the nitty-gritty of things, but you know, with me, you'll get the nitty-gritty, right? So Washington, right? Washington actually crossed the Delaware River 3 times, right? We know about that celebrated one time on Christmas night, right, in 1776, okay?
Yeah.
But he actually did it 2 more times after that, okay? Why? Because that's a strategic location there. So he needed to cross it 2 more times during his Revolutionary War battles, okay? Also, and a lot, again, this may not be taught in school, but blacks, okay, constituted 5% of the Continental Army, all right? We need to give them credit, okay? And that was like around 6,000 troops. They accounted for, that 5% accounted for 6,000 troops, okay? And Cornwallis now, we all know the story about how Cornwallis surrendered to Washington at Yorktown, okay? But hate to let you all down, okay, despite, you know, your teachers may not have taught you this, but he actually was not physically there for the surrender, okay? Now, supposedly, he said, oh, I'm sick, okay? Now, whether or not he was actually sick, we don't know. Maybe he just wanted to save himself the embarrassment, right, okay?
Yeah.
Save face, right, of having to surrender out in public there, okay? So he said, oh, I'm sick, sorry. So he sent his deputy, Charles O'Hara, in his place to surrender to Washington, okay? So just so you know, all right? And so all of the above there, okay? Now, by the way, as far as the blacks, let me just briefly comment on the blacks, okay? Now, they did fight on both sides, the American side and the British side. Why? Hoping to get freedom, okay? Whichever side they fought on, they figured, oh, if we join the British, oh, if we join the Americans, they're, you know, whichever side is victorious. And so some went to one side, some went to the other side. They didn't know which side would be victorious. But they figured if they fought on what ended up being the victorious side, in gratitude, they would be freed, okay? Now, obviously, that was a big gamble they were taking. There were no guarantees there. Just because they were fighting for one side or the other didn't mean necessarily they would get freed after the war ended, but they had to take a chance, right? Okay, so so some did fight for the North, okay, And so some did fight for the Continental Army, okay? What am I saying? I'm thinking the Civil War now. So some did fight, especially those living up here in the north. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, I'm jumping ahead to the Civil War. So some did fight, especially those who were up here in the north, okay, fighting for the Continental Army. Now, those who were fighting for the British were promised freedom, okay? Washington, the Continental Army, did not promise blacks freedom, okay, if they were victorious. But the British, maybe because they were feeling desperate, I don't know, did tell the blacks who were fighting for the British that we will promise you freedom if we're victorious, okay? But of course, the British ended up losing and the blacks were not given their freedom, okay? So, all right. And number 8, now, some of you may remember or know about, okay, the 1972 historical musical drama called 1776, okay,
I
with
didn't know one of these.
with some pretty well-known actors in it, okay? So I gave you a little matching exercise here. Match the actors and the actress
Do you know any of these?
with the character that they played, okay? Now, William Daniels, who's, my wife loves him, she's been following his whole career. He's like 95, 96 now. She's like, oh, do you know that, she was telling me recently, do you know that William Daniels just turned like 96? I'm like, no, I didn't know, but thank you for filling me in there. Some of you know my wife Lori. She loves this guy. She can't get enough of him. I don't know how many times she's watched 1776, okay?
Oh, my goodness.
All right, but anyway. So who did William Daniels play?
Jefferson?
No,
No.
no.
Adams?
Adams, John Adams, okay?
Yes.
So William Daniels was like 95, 96 now. My wife won't let me forget about it. He played, all right, he played John Adams, okay? Google it sometime if you want, we'll see, you know, and then you can tell me what you think of the musical there, you know. Okay, now Ken Howard played, any guesses? Thomas Jefferson, yeah, okay. All right, very good. Give yourself a pat on the back there, right? Okay. And Howard De Silva played, anybody?
Ben Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're on a roll there. Yes, Benjamin Franklin, okay. All right. You gotta come to my other presentations.
The only one I knew was Blair Danner.
Yeah.
There's only one woman.
Because there's only one
That's
book,
right, I knew
okay.
one, 'cause I figured out
So-
which one was a woman's name.
Yeah, right, so that was a gimme there. So Blythe Danner, of course, played Martha Jefferson. Now, she's the one on TV who, who's in those commercials for the osteoporosis medication.
Mother of Gwyneth Paltrow.
Right, the mother of Gwyneth Paltrow, right, Blythe Danner, okay? So the poor woman, she's been reduced to doing osteoporosis medication commercials now, but everybody has to earn a living, right? Okay, so then Donald Madden, of course, then played John Dickinson, right, yeah, okay. Now, so first of all, I did download a poster from the internet, if anybody wants to see it on your way out here today, on when 1776 premiered, okay? It came out kind of fuzzy on the copy machine, but you know when you're trying to download something from the internet sometimes. But if anybody wants to see it, this is a poster when 1776 came out in 1972, listing the actors. Kind of hard to read, but you might be able to see it, okay? So feel free to take a look if you'd like, okay? And then, now, the 250th anniversary now this year, right, of the American Revolution, DCR, Department of Conservation and Recreation that runs Lawrence Heritage, okay? Right there, on my jacket here. So we're involved in this, okay? And they do have, I believe, a website that's on here. You can scan the QR code. So if any of you would like to learn more about what Massachusetts is doing to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution, you can take a look at this when you're leaving as well. Take a picture of it with your camera, whatever you want, okay? And if you want to, go beyond like what I did with you here today, okay, and really, go to town with this, there's other opportunities as well, okay? All right, so does anybody have any questions or comments? Andrea?
By any chance, I doubt it because it's in 1972, but when we were arts class, we had to watch for days a rap version of a historical
Yeah.
between Adams and, what were the other ones there?
Jefferson?
Yes,
Okay.
that's not the same one.
No,
That came
no.
after 72.
After, yeah. Some of you, just briefly,
Is that Hamilton that you're
Yes.
talking about?
Yeah.
Alexander Hamilton,
Because of rap.
the play there.
I wouldn't go watch it.
Yeah,
Rap, I don't
okay.
know.
Well, I didn't like it at first, but I like the historical content of it.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. I'll just speak briefly about the Adams-Jefferson thing. As some of you may know, they didn't like each other, right? Okay. They did become friends later in life, okay? People thought that Adams should have been the primary writer of the Declaration, okay? Adams, however, didn't want that responsibility, and he thought, as did some others, that Jefferson should be the main author of the Declaration, okay? So Jefferson ended up, as you all know, doing it, right? Okay, but Adams was the one being talked about at first to be the principal writer, okay? So, but there was like friction between the two of them. Later became friends, corresponded later in life, okay? They were of opposing parties, okay? Adams was a Federalist, Jefferson was a Democratic Republican, okay? They actually ended up as president and vice president between 1796 and 1800. See, back then, before the 12th Amendment, okay, the way the Electoral College did it, okay, the person who got the most votes, electoral votes, became president. The person who got the second highest amount of electoral votes became vice president. Oh my God, right? But that worked out fine with Washington and Adams. They were both Federalists, right? But then with the 1796 election, we have Adams, the Federalist, Jefferson, the Democratic Republican. Jefferson gets the second highest amount of Electoral College votes. He becomes vice president now, right? So you have a Democratic Republican vice president working under, with or for a Federalist president, okay? They didn't see eye to eye on anything, okay? And Adams kept him out of the loop, didn't consult him, much different than the modern vice presidency, okay? So here you have now in 1800, Jefferson running against his boss, all right? Adams, who was seeking a second term as a Federalist, now his opponent is Thomas Jefferson, his vice president, the Democratic Republican. All right, so that's what prompted passage in 1802-04 of the 12th Amendment to the Constitution, okay, to prevent this from happening again. So now, ever since 1804, in the Electoral College, a separate vote is taken for president and vice president, okay? So whoever gets the second highest amount of votes now does not automatically become vice president, okay? You run as president in the Electoral College, and then you run as, then there's the ones who are running as vice president, and they're voted on separately, okay? So even though they run as a ticket now, okay, but it's separate balloting, okay? So, so then when they both died on the same day, right, which was the 50th anniversary of the signing of, or the adoption of the Declaration of Independence, right? So Adams and Jefferson both died July 4th, 1826, right? While John Adams's son is president, John Quincy Adams, okay? So now you know how news traveled very slow back then, right? So when Adams died, his last words were Jefferson lives, right? But no, Jefferson had died earlier in the day, right? But news hadn't reached Adams yet on his deathbed, right? That Jefferson was gone already, okay? So when he uttered his last words, Adams thought Jefferson was still alive, but not so. So, okay.
I just need
yeah.
a little refresh, general American history. What was the territory at the time of settling the American Revolution?
Okay,
For America? How
okay.
far had we got? I mean,
Okay.
it looks like Virginia.
Maine to Florida, actually,
all the way
Okay.
down.
or Maine to South Carolina. Okay, basically the Eastern Seaboard was what was to become the United States at the time. Okay, now we were slowly pushing westward, right? And under Jefferson there, he favored that. He increased it, he encouraged it more so. But no new states or territories yet, okay, until 1806 when he did the Louisiana Purchase, which nearly doubled the size at that point of the United States, okay? So now the Eastern Seaboard plus the Mississippi River Valley, okay, Ohio River Valley, okay?
Right now, we've been watching Kevin Costner's The West
Yeah,
on the
Okay.
History Channel.
yeah, okay.
It's been, right? It's been wonderful, just wonderful.
Mhm.
So if anybody can get it, we have Comcast, and it's on the History Channel on Comcast. It's been phenomenal, all about the Louisiana Purchase.
Mhm.
Now they're going out to California.
Yeah,
Just
okay.
showing the whole thing. A lot of what happened to the American Indians, but the expansion of our country.
Yes, lots of history there, right, you know? And as some of you may know, in 1830, Congress passed what's known as the Indian Removal Act, which President Andrew Jackson was more than happy to sign. Basically, it authorized him to get the U.S. Army to forcibly relocate the Native Americans, right?
Talking about
Like from southeast United States, okay, Georgia, the Carolinas, out to reservations in the Oklahoma area, okay, just to basically get them out of the way, you know, okay? Make room for the white man, you
that.
know?
They want that land, that's
Right, and that's what was happening, and you think about it today, and you're like, oh my God, you know, we did something like this, but it was a whole different era back then, you know?
new style of eminent domain.
Yeah, like a style of eminent domain, you know?
I can't remember the years, but Trail of Tears in the.
Yes, that's the same thing, Andrea,
Yeah,
right,
that's it.
right. The Indian Removal Act created what we call, historians call the Trail of Tears, right? Because when the Indians were being forcibly relocated, and some of them were dying along the way, okay, shedding tears, right, okay, doing something forcibly that they didn't want to do, suffering hardships, right? So that's also known as the Trail of Tears.
We really give them smallpox.
Right,
In the blankets.
Infected blankets.
right, exactly, right, you know? So we were killing them off, you know? So some of them never made it to Oklahoma, to the destination, you know? They died along the way there, you know? But this is what Congress and Jackson did there with that legislation, you know? So,
I don't recall learning any of this as a child, it's only through later on joining different church groups.
oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know, history is kind of like part of our lifelong learning, right? We all engage in lifelong learning, right? We learn something new every day, whether it's large or small, right? And often, not always, a lot of it has to do with history, right? I mean, it could be science, it could be other subject areas, literature, right? But a lot of what we learn every day, you know, a lot of it, you can make the connection to history.
Getting going, and what happened with the African Americans and
Oh,
farming cities and.
oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right, there's that whole episode there too, right? Yeah.
When Lafayette's tour came back, he goes down to Monticello,
Yes,
and the horses are pulling the way. Monticello sits up on
yeah,
a small
Mm.
mountain.
yes,
That's basically,
yeah,
and as it started
yes, I
up,
have, yes.
started up the hill, all the slaves and everything, stopped the horses, unhitched the horses, let them go, and the people pulled and pushed Lafayette up the hill
Oh,
to Monticello
oh,
to see Thomas.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's quite the reception.
yeah, that.
Were they trying to save the horses?
No, I don't know. I think it was more for Lafayette, they were doing
Yeah.
this than anything else. I'm guessing, you know. I mean, he was revered, you know, he was like a godlike figure, you know? I mean, really, if it wasn't for him, we might all be speaking British right now with a British accent, you know what I mean?
Motorcycle, put a ticket, yours, yeah, right now.
Probably a handicap, it doesn't realize I have a handicap.
So now the ladies put a ticket now.
Oh,
Go take a look
Oh,
first.
they put one on mine, and we went over to City Hall, and the
I
superintendent.
know,
said,
those
I've got
before
four last year.
Oh, no.
No, I got them waived, it's just that the idiots don't know that HP.
Yeah, yeah.
it's-
I know, if you park in handicap, you have it, you know, handicap permit.
I'm used
park.
to it.
And,
All right, well, yes, go ahead, yeah.
when Washington crossed the Delaware on Christmas night,
Yeah,
the guys in the boats were from Marblehead.
oh, yes, I've read about that, right, right.
General Glover's
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Because I think at Marblehead Town Hall, there's some historic item there now on display if you enter the lobby of Marblehead Town Hall. I forget what it is, but there's some like,
of 1776.
oh, the painting, the spirit of 1776, the three guys.
Is that
It's
in
hanging,
Marblehead?
from what I understand, at Marblehead Town Hall.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew it was down there somewhere.
Yeah, Denise, are you Googling it for us? Okay. Okay. Yeah, and by,
I
yeah.
actually went,
you
I
went,
saw it a few years ago.
okay, okay. And Pat, from what I understand, that those three guys there, the with the flutes and the drums, Spirit of 76, I believe, they were supposed to be drunk at the time, I think.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I've read. I don't know how accurate that is, but supposedly they were drunk at the time, you know?
That's the original show, yeah.
Well, they were helping us and got involved with it.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been happy, but
Yeah,
off
I
we go.
don't-
That's
I don't know if
That's where it is.
And I had heard, read something like, but when the British evacuated Boston,
yeah.
they made an agreement, like you said, they saw that those cannons could take out all those ships.
Mhm.
So they made an agreement, they wouldn't burn the city of Boston.
Mhm.
If Boston let them go,
Oh.
take their ships out.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, so a little give and take. Yeah. You wash my hand, I'll wash your hand.
I'll go and you just.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes
I can
sense.
see that.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else I can answer, or anything you want to discuss?
Well, you can tell Laurie he's a very handsome man in his younger years.
That explains why she loves him so much.
Yeah.
And she admires that he's made it to like 95, 96 too, you know?
Well, I'm in love with Johnny Mathis.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
okay.
disappointed he's not singing anymore.
Yeah,
Like him.
He still has his voice.
Oh, yeah.
And
Wow,
he's
good, good for
Have
him.
you seen him in public?
The grass, you got in
no more
one
high
of the
shot.
four
He's
names
losing
here.
his,
Who's
he's
this?
going in and out of memory, so.
The
I
grass,
saw him
yeah.
4 years ago.
Oh, on the multiple choice.
Yes,
Yeah,
he was the French admiral that blockaded.
yes, yes. By the way, those other three choices there, they were all important men on our side in the revolution. Yeah, let me just thank you for mentioning that. So on number 3, those, the 3 incorrect answers there on number 3, all 3 of those gentlemen did play large roles on our side in the revolution.
What did Rochambeau do? That name,
Rochambeau, Oh, I think he commanded an important battle, I forget which one now, in the Revolution.
Did you find about the
Yorktown, okay, Yorktown, yeah.
Did she find about the painting? You found about
Yes,
the painting?
yeah, she found it.
It's located in the selectmen's room of Abbott
Oh.
Hall.
The selectmen's meeting room, yes.
Yeah, in Abbott Hall, in Marblehead, Mass.
Okay, in Marblehead, yeah. Okay, anything else? Yeah.
Can we stay and see that movie?
Oh, yeah, I just have to have the maintenance staff, reset the theater now.
Right, we're next to this.
Or if you don't mind, just, okay, all right, that's
I mean,
fine.
I assume it plays up.
Yeah, right, yeah, okay. Yeah, if anybody else wants to stay, you're welcome to look around or whatever. I have a request to, the Bread and Roses strike, which is a good, it'll give you a good taste of Lawrence's history. I'll play, it's 20 minutes. Some of you I know have seen it before. The Bread and Roses strike video, okay? So, but yeah, I'll get that started now. Before I do that, anything else?
Do you want
Questions?
me to tell you about this stuff
Oh,
after?
all right, after, if you're in no hurry.
Right, yeah.
Okay, all right, thanks, Sarah. Yeah.
I can get